Hello there and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video I really want to talk about something that has actually been impacting me a little bit the past few weeks, and that is the changes to the PvP system. And I think that they were made with the best intentions, but unfortunately in practice I have absolutely encountered quite a few issues that are actually really making it difficult for me to actually even get involved in it anymore. So speaking of the changes that came in patch 5.1, there was a huge revamp on a lot of skills, role actions, battle high got a lot of adjustments, and honestly that was really cool. I'm really happy to see like the meta shifts and just get a lot more tools in my kit. Also the power of healers was decreased a fair bit, meaning that it's a lot more easy to, or a lot easier I mean, to like dual healers and not just get absolutely murked unless you have your limit break. But the change that I want to talk about is that all matches now require 72 players to commence. And so I'm going to start off with probably the less opinionated aspect of this, because I also have a bit of an opinion on how it plays gameplay wise. But in terms of how this one does, in terms of like even getting into PvP, it is extremely difficult at this point to get into a PvP match in general, unless you are going during a prime time. And keep in mind that we now have the really awesome looking PvP glamours that a lot of people wanted, and so this problem as people over time get their gear that they want, like doing the daily front lines, the amount of people going into it is going to decrease even further from the point that we're at today. And so for anyone that isn't really familiar with PvP, there used to be an 8v8v8 mode, and so 8 plus 8 plus 8 is going to equal 24 players. But the problem is with 72 players you have a 24 now, and so basically you have tripled the number of people that you need to queue for frontline at the exact same time to actually get into the frontline. And the problem is there aren't Final Fantasy XIV, while the PvP system I definitely see improvements to, and I definitely see a lot more people being more interested in it in general, especially compared to like earlier expansions, there is definitely not the same draw to do it as there is something like the 24-man PvE copied factory raid, because I don't know, I guess that's just like the players that are like really appealed to in it. It's kind of like, I also play Warframe. Warframe PvP is kind of really not why players really come to Warframe. Like I think that I've stepped into PvP over the years that I played Warframe maybe 5 times. I'm pretty sure that it's even less than 5 times if I'm being honest. I think that I just tried it once and I'm like, nope. But I am seeing like PvP and Final Fantasy though picking up a lot of steam and momentum. I think that the Garo event actually ending was actually one of the best things that could have happened for Final Fantasy XIV PvP, because it got a lot of people into it and like exposed to it, and it was like, oh, you know what, this is actually kind of intriguing, this is engaging, and this is fun. But that being said, we're still at the point where it's like really ramping up, and when the difference between 24 and 72 players is 3 times the players. So I'm queuing up, and I have a few different screenshots. I think one of them actually was well over an hour in queue, and as I'm recording this, I've actually been in queue for over 40 minutes now, just to kind of like show like I'm not making this up, and I'm not like recording this at like 2 a.m. or anything. Like I'm recording at a fairly decent time in the morning. And likewise, I mean, let's be realistic here. Who's gonna sit there for an hour? I mean, even if you can, because remember, a lot of people are like that play the game are full-time working parents. Them being able to just sit at a queue that could pop at any time theoretically. I mean, who really knows when it could with a queue this large? And then you have like 45 seconds to accept or get booted. I mean, it's kind of a lose-lose situation, because it's just like the people that can invest the time, which are few, don't necessarily want to, because it's just like, say me, it's just like right now I am working on a bunch of different stuff and checking my emails and just working on a coding task for an interview that I just did like the other day. So it's like I'm not really invested in like doing other activities. But you know, if it's someone's day off and they really want to do content, they don't want to just sit around doing nothing for an hour. I mean, you can argue, yeah, they can do Ishgard restoration, they can do crafting, yeah, absolutely. But you know what, say they just want to like get really engaged in the game and they want to do like something combative. I mean, this is going to be prohibitive to them. Not to mention, a lot of people say, oh, just wait until prime time and then queue just then and don't expect any other time. That's nice to say, but a lot of people don't work like normal 9 to 5 jobs, or they are like working night shifts. So what are they supposed to do? It's just like you're gonna queue first thing in the morning. Actually, what about people in Australia? I mean, like, let's say that they're just doing their 9 to 5. That doesn't sync up with the time slot in North America, and so it's kind of a real lose-lose situation from that point, because it's just like, what are these people to do? It's just like to expect someone who just got off of a work shift and just wants to jump into PvP to wait at least an hour. I think that that's kind of unrealistic. And likewise, I mean, of course, you'd encounter a little bit of this problem with 24-man content, but we have literally tripled the problem. It has been literally tripled, and I think that that's something that really should be more talked about, and I don't see anyone really covering this topic. But I think that there's also other side to it, because you can be like, oh, just wait for it to fill up, it'll only take 3 times as long, and that's not necessarily true, because a lot of people will get discouraged when they see these massive queues and just be like, well, if it's not instant or it tells me 30 minutes, I'm not going to even bother, because they already know that it's a 72 person thing and that it's going to be a very long wait. And so it's kind of like this like learned hopelessness kind of thing, where they're just like, nah, I'm not even going to bother because I know that's not even going to do it. So technically it's not even 3 times this long, it's even longer, because people already know you're going to get stuck in this. And honestly, I think that that's something that is actually a real shame. In fact, I'd say almost at this point, I almost want to see like frontline rewards get a little bit of a boost. And I mean, people might be like, what do you mean by a boost? I mean, like, right now we're getting a fair amount of wolf seals, so I mean, that's not really a concern. But I want frontline to really be an actual like alternative to doing expert roulette every day. And I mean, some people might be like, oh, that'd be really bad because then you get people just doing it for the tomestones. I mean, that's true. That's kind of true, but you know what, at this point in time, like, you want to get people in at all at this. And honestly, I can say from personal experience, I'd rather do a PvP match than do an entire like expert roulette dungeon, because honestly, it's just something that I prefer. I'm finding myself a lot more of a fan of actually just going and doing PvP, because it's just a little bit more engaging to me right now. I think that I've just done way too many dungeons and I'm like desensitized. It's like, oh, another dungeon today, okay. But in reality, it's just like getting in even is really difficult. Okay, now the more opinionated piece. I like PvP, but I do not like the zergfest that I've been getting in this 72-man thing. I mean, at this point, I'm just gonna be really honest. I find 8v8v8 far more engaging than 24 versus 24 versus 24, because at this point, it honestly becomes very much an RNG kind of zergfest. I need to back up and say some people really like that, and I think that that's awesome, and that 72 should always be an option for these people. But the flip side is, I personally really resent 72-man PvP, because it's just such a zergfest. It's like, take my ninja video, and I really enjoy ganking people. I mean, if this game had open world PvP like World of Warcraft Classic, which their open world PvP is getting tons and tons and tons of hits and views. I mean, what, you have Advertise Shadow Priest versus Asmongold, and that has been literal like YouTube gold. It has been so fun to watch that saga unfold. But I think the point is, reeling it back, that different aspects of things appeal to different players, and for me, I really enjoy that ganking aspect. And people might be like, oh, well, of course melee DPS is going to beat a ranged DPS. Okay, I don't care. I'm there just because I want to have fun and just mash them. I mean, hate me if you want, but that's something I enjoy. And I mean, throughout the years playing MMORPGs, as you can see, even in World of Warcraft Classic, that was back in 2004, and now back again, just watching even the PvP now, it's just like, don't tell me that they're looking for a fair fight. It's just like, you have Asmongold on a Warlock, who's gonna out-duel him? Like, it's not about being fair, it's about having fun, and it's just like, and also kind of like taking it in stride, because you need to take your losses. But it's just, I don't know, for me, 72-man PvP really ruined the experience for me, because it's just like, I no longer can get those one-on-one engagements, or even two-on-one engagements, because if you watch my video, you can see even instances where I went up against 3 players. and I really struggled to get that in 72 man. In fact, when I was trying to record some footage earlier in 72 man, it was just, you'd find someone alone, even if it's a tank or even it's a healer. Like, it's just like I don't really pick and choose my targets too much anymore, but it's like you're gonna have 4, 5, or 10 people just suddenly swarm you, and it's like, how am I supposed to gank in this instance? And it's just frustrating because it's like, yeah, I understand they're supposed to come to their team's aid. Of course, obviously, like, that, no one's disputing that. But the point of the matter is, I want to play objectives. I want to capture objectives behind the team. I want to really, like, play the map, play the field, play the distance, and I find it incredibly like difficult to do that at this point, because it's just like there is almost always like 5 people semi AFK just moving every few minutes at each post, just because you have 24 people there, and these 5 people are like, well, meh, I'm just gonna stand here. And for me, that really kind of ruins a lot of the point of it. And so what ends up happening is it becomes just this giant death ball of PvP, and I find that incredibly frustrating, because it's just like, who's gonna play objectives at that point? I mean, how can I go to like a opposing team's base and be like, okay, I'm gonna hit the Adder's base, and then I'm gonna hit the Maelstrom's base if there's too many people here? And I mean, there is always on either side usually like a clump of 5 semi AFK people on one of them, and so I can't even do that, let alone the ganking. And it's just like, very rarely though, I mean, of course I am able to gank, because you will have some straggler somewhere else, or you're gonna have someone like just AFK alt tabbed out running forward. I mean, let's be honest, I've seen it at this point many times, but it's just like, that doesn't appeal to me. And so for me, I would really love to see an alternative queue where you can queue specifically for 72 man content, because I know that there's many people that really prefer 72 man content, and you know what, I think that you should always have the option. But you know what, for me, as someone that like prefers the more tactical, more objective based, more kind of like solo ganking play and really punishing people for being out of position, I can't experience that in 72 man PvP, and 8v8v8 was completely removed at this point, to the bane of queues, to the bane of people that enjoyed it. And I'm really stuck at this point where PvP with 5.1 had a lot of awesome changes. Like, I love the more independent healing of like being able to use that potion skill. I love the increased DPS output. I love how the bard songs now are playing with the like supportive effect. Like, there are so many things that I can go on and on about that I really love. But this one change of 472 man, I really feel has degraded the experience. It's now hard to get into a match, and the matches, I just can't get that same rewarding feel. Because you know what, in Final Fantasy XIV, I kind of really do wish that we had open world PvP, kind of like classic World of Warcraft. That's something that in Final Fantasy XIV I definitely miss. And so yeah, I guess, like, in a sense, I was really getting that feeling from doing the front lines. I mean, yeah, you can be like, oh, there's still the feast, but I mean, the feast really doesn't do that for me, because that's literally basically a team deathmatch, and it's just like, you don't really get the like exploration and kind of like trying to find people out of position feeling. It's a lot more kind of watered down. It's like, I'm here because I like ganking, I like griefing, I like finding people out of position, and I like playing the objectives. And I'm probably being really repetitive saying that, but I can't emphasize enough that it's like, I can't do that anymore. And so for me, PvP, it's just like, on top of the queue, I'm not even getting what I want out of it. And then looking at the rewards that I was proposing earlier, it's just like, I can't even get rewards from doing it. Or, I mean, yeah, you can get a few tomestones, but it's nothing compared to what you could get in an expert roulette. And I mean, people might be like, oh, expert roulette takes a lot longer. That's patently false, because I've been in some very long frontline matches, and honestly, with dungeons, especially when I go on my healer, I can cut the down the time to easily like 15 minutes. That's patently false for me, at least. I don't know about everyone else, but because I guess I just go like full DPS on my healer in dungeons basically, but it's false. So it's just like, I'm at the point where it's just like, I don't really know what to do other than make this video, because it's just like, obviously they intentionally removed it, and I don't fully understand their reasoning for it. I mean, you could argue the map size is big, okay, awesome, but Frontlines is like Final Fantasy XIV's open world PvP. It is meant to be a bit more open, and it is meant to not just be a feast, like close, compact, no one can hide, no one can gank anything. It's like, even if you look at the maps, like the, what do you call it, the Seal Rock map, it's just like, you can or actually the Borderlands, actually any of the maps, they all have these little structures that you can like hide behind and then pop out and gank someone. So it's like our world, open world PvP, and yeah, not being able to do that anymore is kind of real killjoy. It's just like, okay, now I am waiting over an hour, well over an hour, to get into match that boils down to basically mindless zergfest with like people not even thinking, people not even playing objectives, and it's kind of, it makes me a little sad, because it's just like, it was something that I really enjoyed. Like when I made that ninja video, I was having an awesome time. It's just like, that was fun to me. It was definitely bringing me back to like my PvP roots and MMORPGs, and yeah, it's kind of sad just to see that go, especially because I was just really getting into that, because I wasn't the biggest PvPer before, because I'm not gonna lie, the Garo event definitely opened my eyes toward it. So that's kind of my thoughts, but I'm curious what everyone else's thoughts are on this, because this isn't just a, what you call, pick up and make happen solution, and it was very obvious that they thought about it and they intentionally removed it. But I personally don't want to say it's a mistake, but for me personally, I view it as a mistake because I'm not getting what I want out of it. I mean, long queues, zergfest, lack of objective based, poor rewards for basically the same amount of time or sometimes longer. Yeah, but I'm curious what everyone else thinks, because I've been more than clear. So let me know down in the comment section below. I actually read all my comments, and actually, as I'm recording this, I owe a lot of you responses, and I am going to get on that ASAP. Anyhow, that's all for this video, and please let me know. Anyhow, see you. Oh, also, any likes, subscribes, comments are super duper appreciated and help me a lot. Anyhow, officially, talk to you later. See you.